Hey, what's up guys? JB here. And today I wanted to talk a little bit about lower rarity units. For the longest time in this game, there was really little reason to use or focus on these units. And even if you wanted to raise these units, the game for some time was actively punishing you for doing so, since it would deplete so many limited resources that were often better served on their UR counterparts. But today I wanted to talk a little bit about why I think that's changed over the last year of the game, and also my personal favorite and recommended lower rarity units to help guide you into this world if you haven't yet started. Believe it or not, there are several units among the pack that are actually useful in high-end PvP and certainly in PvE. I know for some more high-level or veteran players, this topic may be a bit of a review. In my experience though, even veteran players out there sometimes are unsure where to start when it comes to the lower rarity stuff. And honestly, I feel like that's because this topic is rarely talked about or discussed. So I do hope that there's a little something for everyone in what I've prepared here today. And with that, let's just dive right into it. And let's kick this off with some reasons why I think that everyone should be actively working on their lower rarity roster. And let's start with reason one, and that's to increase your monthly awakening materials intake. And I know maybe for those folks who were able to get in on that light selection quest exploit a couple of months back, this is not really that big of a factor. But for everyone else, this is certainly a very nice benefit. For very little effort in terms of clearing up through, say, selection quest level 6 or 7, you can start accruing 50 elemental fragments and prisms, as well as a couple of rainbow fragments per element. And this is something that resets, every month. So over time, those awakening materials that you actually invest into your lower rarity units will be replenished, and then some over time. So definitely a nice side benefit here. 50 doesn't really sound like a ton, but they do add up over time. And again, you don't really need to invest all that much effort here. And actually, the higher up that you're able to clear in those selection quests, the easier it is to actually get these materials and have it done for the month. I think on level 13, I'm only spending a couple of skip tickets per element to completely clear out my monthly allotment. All right, so on to reason two, and that's actually being able to work through and fully complete those selection quests that we were just talking about. Not only for the units themselves, but for the new selection quest exclusive equipment that's being added via levels 11 through 13 of each quest. And so far, we've gotten a couple of those, and these items are UR quality and very nice options to actually have in your tool belt. Several of the units, as well, I want to say are pretty strong in their own right. Units really standing out to me are Camillo, Moraga, Rafal, Minwu, and Raychess. These are by no means meta units, to be clear, but I do feel that they all have their niche and are units that I've used in high-end PvP. And certainly Moraga here is also a beast in PvE as well. He has access to those 3-hit chains and the slowing attack. He's definitely a mainstay in my earth chaining team. That equipment that we mentioned is also giving these units even more power with some exclusive passive abilities on them. But in some cases, those items are just very nice for anyone to use. Just look at the recently released Gargus Staff of Madness. It actually has one of the highest base magic stats in the game for any rod, while giving that large 20 magic attack modifier added onto it. Definitely makes it one of the better staffs in the game. And from everything that I've seen, these selection quests have been well received. I do wish that they had been added to the game a little bit earlier, but I'm glad that they are here now, and I do think that Gumi has been doing a great job with this content. And I do believe that they're going to continue to add and iterate onto these quests with new units and new equipment over time as the game progresses. All right, on to the next one, and I've really grouped reasons 3 and 4 together because they're really of the same vein, and that's using those lower rarity units to compete in cost-restricted PvP events. Class match here, for example, this mode actually used to be once per month. Sadly, now it's only every other month, and I do have to pour one out for that. This is probably my favorite mode in the game, and I'm sad that it's now only once every other month. And that's really where I got my start in terms of not only exploring those lower rarity units, but also lower rarity vision cards and espers. And I do know that that barrier to entry for manual play or manual class match can be daunting for some players. But I'm going to speak to that today in terms of these lower rarity units, and I hope that some of you out there may find that helpful, and maybe we'll look forward to seeing you in the manual PvP scene. And that leads me into quick pick as well. Currently this mode has not been cost restricted thus far, but who knows, maybe that's something that we'll start seeing in the future. Personally, I think that that would add a nice extra element to that mode, adding in those cost restrictions to it, and I think it would be nice if they did add a manual play option as well. The next big one in terms of cost restricted PvP is limited guild war, and in some cases this mode has been the most restrictive when it comes to costs. We recently had a limited that was actually 500 total cost for your team. And that really stresses the importance of having those lower rarity options, at your beck and call. Personally, I do really enjoy that mode because these lower rarity units have an opportunity to come in and really shine. And I find that's actually quite fun and refreshing personally, seeing those units that we never really see on the battlefield or really get to use all that often, and have them come in and really surprise you with what they're able to do. And that's going to bring me to my final reason for why you should be working on these lower rarity units. And that's actually to round out your elemental capabilities. And when I say elemental capabilities, I'm talking maybe more from a PvE perspective. Some of these units have very powerful skills, especially when they're EX, and that can help you clear content such as Nightmare or Brutal events. And that in turn is going to net you Gil, Magicite, Burst, and Armor Pots, and even Truststone currency now to help power up your account even more. Several of these units are also quite good when it comes to guild raids and providing chaining capabilities, either innately or through access to vision cards like Exorcists or a gift like no other. Now, one last thing that I'll say here is that it's never actually been easier to work on these units. Like I said, at one time it was really hard to dedicate resources into these lower rarity units. I don't really think that's the case any longer, at least in terms of getting them up to a usable level 99. They did also recently add challenge boards for each element to help in raising your MR units and giving you shards and materials along the way. Alright, so that's a few reasons why everybody should be working on these units, but I get that actually knowing which units to raise up or even EX may not be readily apparent. I know that some people actually get into that analysis paralysis zone where they just don't invest into anything because they're afraid of making the wrong choice. So I'm going to go element by element here and tell you my personal favorites and why I think that they're good and worth your resources. And let's actually start off with the water elements. But before I do that, let me first talk about how I've organized this. And what I've done is I've chosen what I feel is a can't miss option for each element, and that's my all-around choice. I've then added a couple of other categories here for units that you should strongly consider for manual play if you're interested in that. And lastly, a unit to consider for raising up maybe just for the selection quest itself. Now, in some cases, a unit actually may be suitable for any of these categories, but I've tried to put them where I think that they fit best in my view. Alright, so on to the selections, and for water, my all-around can't miss option is going to be Ramada. She's an excellent PvE unit with her access to Thief subjob. She can get up to move 4 and has access to up to range 6 on her attacks if she's EX. She has some great utility options with her Spellblade sub as well when it comes to mitigating magical based damage. So for those reasons and more, I really feel that you can't go wrong in raising up Ramada for your team. In terms of the manual selection, it's none other than Zazan here, the lowest rarity and cost unit in the game. He comes in at only cost 20, which is crazy, but he's mostly known for his innate access to move 6. He has the ability to charm his foes, and this guy has been a staple and a menace in the manual class match scene ever since it started. Another great thing about this unit is he can wear the Glinting Armor or Kane's TMR to give your team access to that CT boost or even just haste himself and give him even more mobility. So the value proposition here at only cost 20 is just off the charts for this guy. Alright, last one here. So in terms of a selection quest specific choice, I'm going to put my man Tyrell here. And PvE is really where his main job Knight truly can shine, since he's able to completely shut down enemies with his various breaks, and specifically his AP break ability. I really found him invaluable in terms of completing the water selection quest to get Ray Chess. So if you have the shards from his event, I highly recommend getting him up to 99, and he'll help you quite a bit, I think, in completing that. Okay, so the next element is going to be the lightning elements. And before I get started here, I will say that the picks I made here for lightning, really, you could interchange them. All 3 of the units I have are going to be excellent in their own way and have viable use cases in multiple areas. So with that said, my all-around choice here is going to be Silma. And, Silma sadly is not a unit that you can just go out and work on freely. She does come via a recurring event, and that's something they've brought back several times, and I'm sure they'll bring back more in the future. So if you haven't finished her yet, I do highly recommend that you focus on her the next time that she comes back. Very useful support unit and even pretty nice damage as well. I've used her many times in class match and also limited guild war too. I really love her party buff, which can give 25 resistance to both slash and missile attacks. Alright, next one here for manual play. play, and I can also recommend Ravi S here. She's another good mobility charm threat, definitely a lot tankier than Zazan, and she has Immortal Spirit on top of it. She can even provide a little bit of evade support within her EX. She has access to a blind ability, and she can definitely do work, from a PvE perspective as well. She's a pretty decent tank, so definitely a nice all-around unit here. All right, so last but not least, we have our Whimsy Shop caretaker here, Leart, who with her second mastery ability is by far the most accurate unit in the game, and really it's not even that close. She can provide range damage and rain down status effects on the enemy. On top of that, she can bring some decent support as well with her White Mage sub job, and she has that really nice low 30 cost on top of it. So in my view, it's really hard to go wrong with these units for any applications that I've talked about. Lightning definitely is doing pretty well when it comes to these lower rarity cost units. All right, next up is the Earth element, and the all-around choice here is an easy one, and it's Prince Mott. Everybody can build this guy up, very easily. And in most cases, I would recommend this actually be the first low rarity unit that you work on. In my opinion, he's quite essential, and especially in the Earth selection quests. But I've definitely seen this guy around, across the cost-restricted PvP environments as well, in both auto and manual play. He has very high defense, and within his EX, he gets an upgrade to his Rock Throw. And at just 5 AP, it's a guaranteed hit, provides move down, just an amazing skill. So overall, excellent MR unit here, and may actually be one of the best among all the elements. For manual play, I'm going to put in my man Lorenzo here, and honestly, he's been more of a recent revelation, for the manual scene, because he's actually only recently got his EX. But this guy actually packs a ton of utility for only 50 costs, and that's because this guy actually just deletes all of the meta status buffs in one attack with his EX Dive of Destruction. So that's Protect, that's Shell, that's Re-Raise, and Immortal Spirit, all getting dispelled in one attack, and that comes in a cross AoE as well. And this is just an insane attack, and one that I think we'll see play across our next restricted guild war as well. His accuracy isn't all that bad either. He has a self 40 accuracy buff that he gets in his EX, and even if he misses the target with that Dive of Destruction, all of those status dispels come pre-damage, so really it's just a high value ability no matter which way you slice it. Well, by the way, he also has Time Mage sub job, and he can give your team haste as well on top of it. So just a very nice PvP unit here, and definitely with his EX, I think he's one of the best ones out there. All right, so last one for Earth here, and that's Levi. And I really found her useful in the latter rounds of the Earth selection quest. She has the Arithmetician sub job and access to that level 3 disable ability, which several enemies along the way were actually susceptible to that status. So definitely don't sleep on her. She did work for me even as a level 99 in the selection quest. She has some nice healing support that she provides and some decent damage she can throw in there as well. All right, so let's dive into the Wind element next. And Wind definitely isn't the strongest, when it comes to lower rarity units, but there are definitely a couple of standouts that we'll talk about here. And my all-around choice here is going to be Dario. And I think in terms of MR tanking, Dario is in a pretty good spot. I found him very helpful, during the selection quest for drawing aggro and providing some utility to the team. And I have actually used him as a great sort of stand-in for Joom in my Winds party during a recent limited guild battle. I was able to get this guy to tank Jaden and Elena without very much problem, while my Marymore and Little Leela were able to clean up from the background. And I was definitely very impressed with his level of mitigation, especially when he has his magic barrier active. In terms of a manual PvP unit, look no further than Helena here. Incredible support unit, with haste and quicken, and her agility is definitely no joke for an MR unit when she has the Black Rose Vision card equipped. And agility is definitely an area where a lot of lower rarity units can struggle, but it's really not an issue for her at all. I will make special mention here for her Bar Aurora ability as well, and that's because this one gives 25 resist to both Earth and Winds with a 15 defense buff on top of it. And those elements are two that we quite often see in class match, so definitely some useful utility there that she can add to the party, in addition to that haste and quicken that we mentioned. All right, so last one here is my selection quest call out, and I'm going to throw Lorila here into the ring. She was very useful for me in terms of completing stages 1 through 10 of the Wind selection. After that, I did end up taking her to level 115, where she actually really shined for me in stages 11 through 13. She has an enhanced barrage ability and actually really nice accuracy that really served me well in those quests. All right, so Ice is up next, and Ice is definitely lacking, in terms of numbers for lower rarity units, but it definitely makes up for that in terms of the quality. And there's definitely a couple of really nice standouts here. And my all-around choice is going to be King Curry. And this guy has killed it for me. You know, Curry's EX has really taken him to a new level when it comes to PvP. Now, range units in general are always going to be much stronger from a manual perspective. Unfortunately, within autoplay, the AI always moves them forward and puts them into a bad spot. I do feel, though, that once he gets his second mastery, you know, in cost-restricted formats, he definitely brings a lot of nice things to the table. And his range with that second mastery is going to be off the charts. He's going to have that enhanced chance to frostbite as well, which I think that if you can combo that maybe with another damage dealer who also likes to steal AP, I think that you can really shut down the enemy even in an auto scenario. So definitely don't underestimate this guy. I think there's a lot of ways that he's actually can be very strong. All right, next up is going to be Shell. And she's been a long-time favorite support unit in terms of manual play. She has very high agility and lightning fast quickens. All that on top of having access to 4 move. And it just makes her born for that manual mode. I will say though that, you know, these days Quicken is often banned in class match, which definitely has impacted her value quite a bit. But even so, you know, when Quicken is allowed, or if you're looking maybe at a double Quicken team, she's definitely one of the best values out there at only 50 cost. All right, last one here in terms of the selection quests. And again, all 3 of these units were actually all-stars for me in that mode. These are definitely the top 3 in my book, you know, when it comes to getting those stages cleared out. But I'm going to put Lady Nasha here. You know, not a ton to say. She's a pretty straightforward tank, you know, and especially strong when it comes to physical-based damage. And she can definitely fill that role and perform well in making sure that the rest of your team isn't taking too much damage. All right, up next is going to be Fire. And in terms of best all-around, you know, can't miss unit, I have to go with Seymour. Good mobility, you know, decent accuracy. He can wear armor for Keen Blade. And he has that Thief sub-job, which gives him both Steel Heart and Steel Time. For an MR, he's actually got pretty nice attack value as well. And he just got that really nice second mastery to boot. This is really a unit that I feel is just among the cream of the crop when it comes to MR units in the game. So I really don't think that you can go wrong with him for the Fire element. All right, in terms of manual play, I have to go with my man Mish here. And again, he has that coveted 4 mobility. He gets 2 EX skills in particular that really make him a threat in that respect. He has Abyssal Mire, which it's a guaranteed hit with an AoE Steal Time effect. Just a hugely powerful skill if you're able to pull it off. His other notable EX skill upgrade is his Toad ability, which adds a break to both Spirit and Agility on top of the status effect. So he can definitely be disruptive, and he has that super low 30 cost as well. His 2 issues are really that he's just super squishy, and he's also just really slow with his agility. But if you can cover those weaknesses, you know, I think that you're golden, and you know, he's a pretty decent unit. All right, so my last one here is going to be Lilith. And Lilith really was a vital piece for me in clearing the Fire selection quest. Again, that night job, you know, while it really doesn't do too well from an auto PvP perspective, and that's really due to the AI not really being able to utilize certain pieces of the kit, when you are able to control her manually, that AP and TP break can be really effective in some situations. And actually what I was able to do with her in the selection quest was effectively crowd control the Phoenix Esper and some other enemies. And so that's something I was able to do with her really well, even at level 99. Her EX, though, you know, does add some extra AP regen for her, and even another AoE AP break that also does damage, so can even actually just make things even smoother, but definitely not required, you know, for the selection quest specifically. All right, so we're moving on to the light element now, and honestly, light is just stacked when it comes to low rarity units. You know, just as it seems, they're sort of stacked when it comes to everything in this game. And here, you know, my can't miss pick has to go to Fina, and you really will not regret awakening this unit whatsoever. You know, just a great unit in all aspects of the game, and legitimately one of the more powerful MR units among the pack. She provides great support and even decent damage at a very long range with her Sparkle Shower. One of her main drawbacks, though, is her accuracy when it comes to PvP. But otherwise, you know, she's a very good unit and can definitely help you out quite a bit in the selection quest as well. Now, in terms of my manual PvP pick, and being real, you know, Fina would have been right at home here as well, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention Phoebe here. Bar none, you know, one of the best cost to value ratio units in the game. As an SR, she's only 40 costs, yet somehow she doesn't end up with some of the main drawbacks that most other SR units have, which is garbage tier agility. On top of that, she has access to 4 movement as well, and she gets extra range on her EX Quicken ability, so she can be played very safely from a range and support your team. Her level 120 Job 25 ability is also very nice, provides a 25% AoE agility buff to your team as well with Speed Force. So definitely definitely can't go wrong here with Phoebe. Out of all the lower rarity units, she's definitely, I would say, one of the higher picked ones when it comes to manual play, so really can't go wrong with her in my opinion. All right, so my last pick here is Marielle. Another very nice magic focused tank, has some similarities to Dario. And this is another unit that I used to very nice effect during limited guild war, tanking for my light team. And again, she was really shining when it comes to mitigating any magical scaled damage. And that definitely helped me out in the selection quest with her as well. Within her EX, she actually gets an ability called Mind Crusher, which was actually quite helpful because a lot of enemies within the selection quest have very high spirit. So this was able to help cut through that, and the team overall was able to do more damage. She does also uniquely have some innate hate on her as well, so that definitely helped draw the enemies to her, and again helped the rest of my team take less damage for meeting some of those quest criteria and completing the quests. So these are my top 3 for the light elements, but honestly, Vistral and Elshra are also very nice as well. As usual, just an embarrassment of riches for the light elements here. And that takes me to the final element here, which is the dark element. And unlike light, dark is really in a tough spot when it comes to lower cost units. First of all, there is only 5 to choose from, one of which is actually a limited unit in Gafgarian. And I think a lot of you out there maybe know my pick here, before I even say it, and that's because it's going to be Shadow Lynx, obviously. Great evade unit, great PvE unit, amazing guild raid chaining as well with Dream Within a Dream. She also has a single target resistance break of 30 as well that she can bring to the team. So definitely one of the stronger guild raid units for her elements that's out there. This unit is so strong that, if you have the right vision cards and equipment, she's able to solo the Dark Selection quest by herself. All right, now in terms of my next picks, and I'm half joking here, but Shadow Lynx is really the only choice to really invest in and go hard for, in my opinion, in Dark. I would take her all the way to 120. Honorable mention here, though, I am going to say Rarity and Little Leela. I did raise them to 99 as well, and they were helpful in the selection quest as well for me. Little Leela does have a couple of interesting EX abilities as well. Notably, she has a guaranteed hit that has a high chance to silence, which actually can be pretty effective in shutting some units down. So I would say, definitely don't underestimate Little Leela if you happen to come across her in cost-restricted PvP. All right, so that was all 8 elements, and, insight into some of my favorites out there when it comes to lower cost. There is one thing that I want to mention here, and that's recently on the JP side, we've started seeing a new generation of MR units. And the nice thing is that similar to Silma and Krace, they're all free from event quests. And we'll actually start seeing this second generation of MR units very, very soon on the global side. And that's starting with Renelle here in the middle. She's an evade unit with Immortal Spirits. She has 3-hit chaining attacks. So very, very strong unit, I'd say, especially for 50 cost. She's going to be followed a month or 2 later by Cyril here in the wind elements, and finally McLeod here, who was actually just recently released on the Japanese side. And these units, in terms of their kits and capabilities, do come with more current modern jobs, and in a lot of ways are just a step above those legacy MR units that we were just talking about. I would even go so far to say that you can argue that they're better than some of the launch UR units. I think that's, how good they are in terms of job power creep over some of those early jobs. Cyril here, for example, will actually be the first unit in the game who can dispel Celis's unique runic status. And notably, McLeod here gets quad shot from his dual gunner sub, so he's going to be an amazing PvE chainer as well. Again, the best thing about them, though, is that low 50 cost. So they're going to offer great value for their cost, bringing modern utility on their skills for cost-restricted content. And I do imagine that Gumi is probably going to be going and cycling through all the elements here eventually. So definitely something to check out, and definitely work on them and finish their event quests when they do roll out in global. All right, so that's it, guys. And I tried to do something a little bit different here today, and I hope that it was helpful for you. In my opinion, cost-restricted play is really where it's at, in terms of PvP and PvE. I think that that's really what makes this game shine, because, it forces you to make those hard strategic choices and look at units that you don't necessarily play with on a daily basis and actually see what they're capable of. What about you out there, though? I know some of you probably have a favorite low-cost unit that I didn't touch on today, so definitely make your case for them in the comments down below. At the same time, which is your favorite cost-restricted mode? And what would you like to see changed in the future or added, when it comes to those modes? Definitely let me know about that too. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. It'll help the channel grow and be notified of my future videos. And that's all I have to say today. So as always, stay safe out there, and I'll see you guys in the next one.